terrorism began in the unrest had been going on for a while. So unrest has always been going on. But finally, when they picked up the gun and when the official terrorism or militancy began was 1989. And that was Kashmiri terrorists. These were all Kashmiri boys who had crossed the border to POK, and they were trained there. And as Shrimoy said, their training was quite good because they were getting trained by ISI and Pakistani army themselves. The camps had been set by them, and it was a lot easier for them to cross the border at that time. So we did see in 1987 to 89, I would say in 1987 it must have begun, but we sort of got because I was there, so we sort of got a hint of it in 1988 because all the local boys were getting, they were just disappearing, and all the local Muslim boys. So you would go to their moms, like my mom would go and ask, like, where did he go and what was his, whatever his nickname was, and she would say, where did Pintu go, where did Raju go? And they would say, oh, he's gone for training. Everybody would say training, and my mother would come back thinking that they have all gone for some engineering degree or something. So it was very common that, so and so's boys has gone for training, so and so boy, they've all, little did we know what that training meant. And by 1989, of course, a rude jolt came, and by the end of 1989, we saw what that training was. But this phase was totally Kashmiri boys getting trained. And it was only JKLF, which was, as Shrimoy pointed out, which was the overreaching militant terrorism outfit at that point. Then after that came the second phase. And this was the mercenaries from Pakistan, who were now coming, Mujahideen phase. This was these people who had come from Afghanistan, who had come from Pakistan, from the frontier areas of Pakistan, and they started forming these groups called Hizbul Mujahideen, Lashkar-Toiba. These we had not seen in the beginning of the terrorism. JKLF would talk about Kashmir, would talk about things, but although it was all about, we all knew that it was an Islamic uprising, but at least they were not quite calling it an Islamist uprising, even though there was no doubt in anybody's mind. The fact that the exodus of Kashmiri Hindus happened clearly made it an Islamist uprising, but they were at least paying a small, tiny bit of lip service to the state of Kashmir. Once Hizbul Mujahideen and Lashkar-e-Toiba and all these Pakistani groups personally started coming in, Jaish-e-Mohammed, they started coming in, then it was clearly an Islamist insurgency, and it was made clear. Everybody would remember that Mastgul episode. I'm sure Shrimoy remembers that very clearly. Mastgul episode and Shahri Sharif Mosque, when he held, when an encounter happened with him and Indian forces. Mastgul had come straight from Afghanistan. He was a battle-hardened Mujahideen.
Absolutely.
So then we saw that phase till 1996. And then Indian forces really got an upper hand on them with Ikhwan. Again, Shrimoy will remember that Ikhwan, that had started local, Indian army had started arming the local people against the terrorists, and that was called Ikhwan. They were Ikhwanis. So these were local terrorism who had turned on, who were working now for the Indian state.
Exactly.
Indian state, and they had turned on to these terrorists. So that was another phase, and that really helped Indian forces to get a upper hand. So that continued. And then in 1996, the election, as you know, the election happened, and some kind of peace, because now they were, I always say that peace in Kashmir means two phases between violent events. So then after this 1996, there was this violent thing, and there was a little break in the time. And then the new phase started with Burhan Wali, which is exactly what Shrimoy was referring to, these internet recruited terrorists. Now, this was again local boys. So this was not as much as mujahideens from outside. Now these were locally trained, locally radicalized, 18 to 23, that age group.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
that was this thing, and they were all being recruited on WhatsApp, on Facebook. Remember, there was major this thing, WhatsApp, Facebook, and whatever, all these little internet messaging tools that are available, and that's what happened. And with Burhan Wani's killing, another phase has started, which is still continuing there, and this is radicalization of local Kashmiri youth. Now, remember, Roshan, why this is different. When JKLF started, they had known who Kashmiri Hindus were. They had lived amongst us. They knew what was the character, a social character of Kashmir. Then Mujahideens came, they had no idea. They were only fighting the Indian state. Now this new crop that has come, these 18, 19-year-olds, they don't even know that there was a Kashmir where Hindus lived. They don't even know that there was a Kashmir where temples existed and people prayed in temples. They don't even know of that Kashmir. They have no idea. All they have seen is war and strife. They are all post-90 kids. Now, even though they don't have training as well as the other people, as Shrimoy said very correctly, they're not as well trained because of how it has been difficult to cross border now. But the radicalization is extreme radicalization. They have not known anything else. So this is another kind of challenge for Indian forces and Indian state now to somehow work on this, and this is going to take a while. This is a long project. But then when we are fighting civilizational battles, what is 70 years?